Welcome back to another episode of the Dead Elephants podcast.
Why do you always get to do the welcome back?
Well, you can do it if you want.
Welcome back to the Dead Elephants podcast. No, I don't have the voice.
No, do it again. Go for it.
No,
No,
I secede. You're the alpha.
Nah, stop it.
You're the alpha. I'm sorry.
And in 3, 2, 1, take it away, Chris.
Duncan's the alpha.
Oh, get out of it. I'm not. Listen, everyone says this. There's some BDE in the room, but I know how to do an intro. That's all. All right, team. This week, I'm kind of uncomfortable about this topic, mate.
Yeah. Bit too close to home.
Of course it is.
Greed. We're talking about greed.
Oof.
I love it. I love that we're talking about it. Seriously, it's good.
What, two white rich men talking? Yeah.
Greed is our 101.
This is our wheelhouse. This is our sty of existence, is greed. All right.
The good news is it is for most other people too, so we're not alone.
Yep. All right. You got a sharing question for us?
Yeah. A question on a podcast about a podcast. We're going meta podcast.
Okay, it's a bit Inception.
What is your favorite podcast that you listen to?
It's one of the big 3.
Yep.
It's the Bill Simmons podcast. Mm-hmm. I love that guy.
Yep.
He's insightful, witty. I like the community he built, like the whole Ringer. I got a Ringer T-shirt.
Yep. He was an early podcaster. Like, he got onto it.
Yeah, well, you know, the 3 big your big podcasts are Bill Simmons,
Yep.
Mark Maron, and Joe Rogan.
I've literally never heard of Mark Maron.
You've never heard of Mark Maron?
No. The other 2 I know. I don't know who Mark Maron is.
Oh, Mark Maron. They're the 3 massive podcasts.
What's Mark Maron's shtick?
He does interviews with people.
Right.
But he's an extraordinary podcaster as well. Those 3 guys got into it right at the ground level and have done extraordinary things.
Yep.
Okay, so Bill Simmons is mine. What's yours?
I don't have one of the big 3. I came across a podcast called You're Not Crazy.
Ooh, okay.
And I loved it. So, Christian podcast.
Yep.
Put on by Gospel Coalition. Sam Albury and Ray Ortland are the hosts.
Okay.
And the premise of it is for young pastors who are feeling like there might be more to this ministry thing and Christian community thing than what they have seen so far.
Yeah.
As the name suggests, you're not crazy for wanting that. And so they talk about something called gospel culture. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty gutsy podcast, to be honest, because, again, Gospel Coalition is putting it on. They're essentially analysing their own movement and saying this desire for gospel doctrine that we've been pursuing for the last 30 years, great. Let's not give that up. But if you do not match gospel doctrine with what they call gospel culture, how good is your doctrine in the first place?
Right.
Yeah. So I just love the gutsiness of the podcast. I love the tone of the podcast. And it's put a voice to something that I have been craving myself. I'm a fan of theology. I'm a fan of doctrine.
Yeah.
But that good doctrine needs to get you to love of God. And it needs to get you to love of neighbour. And if, excuse me, and if it doesn't, how good's the doctrine in the first place? And that's the premise of it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. So You're Not Crazy. Have a listen.
It almost feels like to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength needs a second commandment to love your neighbour as yourself.
You might say that.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool. All right, well, let's tackle a topic that may be challenging, confronting, and this might be the most hypocritical podcast we've done to date.
So, elephant scale, we're looking at greed. Where are you on the greed scale? If not, how greedy are you? How much at least have you thought about it, wrestled with it?
Constantly.
Yeah, right.
I'd be an 8 or a 9, and I think part of the reason I'm an 8 or a 9 is that I'm really concerned that I'm breaking my children because they have lavish wealth all around them. Mm-hmm. So I'm not particularly good at making money. If you've listened to the entrepreneurial
Still can't
podcast,
say it, man.
I can't say it.
Stop it.
I can't make it. But I found myself living in a community where I'm surrounded by profound wealth, and that has impacted my family, my neighborhood that I lived in. I mean, you've come to my place. All these homes are worth north of $2.5 million.
Yep.
That is incredible wealth.
And you yourself, I went to a Christian school, wasn't an elite private school. You did.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess you've grown up with a little bit more than I have from the start.
Yeah, and the truth.
Were your parents wealthy? I don't
No.
know.
So my parents were apple farmers from Anna Bay.
Wow.
They were the first, I think, within their family to own a property. So
Yep.
they bought their first house in Newcastle. They both got degrees. Mum tells stories of being chased by bulls on the farm. So she is a self-made woman. My dad was a self-made man, and so they put us in a position for success. And then I chose to work for a not-for-profit. Just make no money.
Well played.
You know.
Here's this chain. Let me just cut what's been created. How did they make their money? What did they do?
I think they were metallurgists. They went to work in Malaysia.
Wow.
Which early on was a part of if you wanted to promote quicker, you would do that, and so they're just diligent, hard workers.
Yep.
I mean, I used to rock up at Knox in a 1981 626 and park it behind a brand new Mercedes. So we weren't on
Yep.
that scale, but mate,
Relatively globally.
yeah. If you've got a tap on the inside of your house, you're in the top 10% of wealthy people
Yep.
on earth.
Yep.
If you've got multiple flushing toilets, I think that moves you up to 8%.
Yep.
So the benchmark for profound global wealth is really low. It's running water on your property.
Yep.
That's so we have these moments where it's like if only I was more wealthy. And the Scandinavians are the one who do research on this, and they say, mate, your peak
Yep.
for wealth creation as a direct indicator of happiness is like, what is it, like
75 grand, I think. I think it was a Harvard study. They did something.
There
on
you
that.
go.
Yeah.
It was either Harvard or the Scandinavians.
Yeah, it's one or the other. Yep.
$75,000 a year. So anything above that is just incremental happiness.
Yep.
And where we are certainly located in Sydney, most people are north of that number.
Well, the problem in Sydney, and this could be a cop-out to say, but we have huge earnings and huge assets, but the cost of living is also high.
Yes.
And so that, wealth is not the same as greed, right? So we do have wealth.
Yes.
What does greed look like in our context is really hard to determine.
Woo!
Because you've got a lot coming in, but you've got a lot going out for just basic everyday stuff.